The MCU's lost its way. After Endgame, the wheels fell off. These last couple of years have had no focus, no direction. There's no crossovers, it's not building to anything. It's just a bunch of random projects. Phase 4 is a mess. That's what you've heard, at least. That's probably what a lot of you think yourselves. In this video, I'm going to do my best to convince you that you're wrong. Because from where I'm standing, Phase 4 isn't the jumbled heap of loose ends so many others are claiming. It has a focus. It has a direction. It's just less linear, less plot-focused a direction than we've maybe seen before with the franchise. And in a word, it's expansion. Expansion across genre, across form, across different realities and franchises, into new mediums, and even into new cultures. The thing that unites Phase 4, that characterizes it, that drives it, is this sense of innovation across countless fronts. And if we just take a look at all of these new directions the MCU's taken since Endgame, I think you'll begin to see that Phase 4 does have a purpose, does have a focus. But just before I tell you about all the new things Phase 4's doing, I'm gonna do something kind of new myself, and tell you about a game I've recently been playing. Maybe you've heard of it. Yeah, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, the premier mobile fantasy strategy RPG, with too many playable champions to count. Actually, no, wait, someone did count them, and it turns out there's over 600, all coming from unique factions within the land of Teleria. For instance, have you heard about the High Elves? You gotta hear about the High Elves. They're from the land of Aravia. They're an ancient civilization. They helped defeat the orcs way back in the day, they had a bit of a civil war, and then they put their civilization back together again, and carried on kicking it elven style. Truly an inspirational story, and it's one you can dive into with Raid.
My favourite High Elf champion is Elhain. She's got this nifty arrow attack that hits all the enemies at once.
Now with Raid, there are some in-app purchases, that's probably worth knowing going in, but they're all optional, and I was totally able to have a good time on Raid without spending a penny. And there's no time like the present. They've just released a new faction, the Sylvan Watchers, with a pretty nifty cast of champions. You've got Forest Elves, you've got Ents, you've got Druids, you've got Fays, all sorts of cool little guys to summon up and play with. Plus, at the moment, Raid's got a full lineup of events, along with a new season of the Forge Pass, where you can get your hands on some truly immaculate drip. And hey, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get your exclusive rewards in Raid right now. So yeah, now's the time to get into Raid, and if you click my link in the description or scan my QR code here on the screen, you'll get unique bonuses worth $30, such as this free epic champion Tayrel, 200k silver, an energy refill, an XP boost, and one ancient shard, to let you really go wild and summon champions like there's no tomorrow. All of that good stuff's waiting for you, but only for the next 30 days, and only to new players. But hey, you came here to hear about Phase 4, so let's get back to the MCU. The most common point people like to make about Phase 4's supposed lack of direction is that it doesn't seem to be building up to anything in a tightly focused way, that no big team-up or crossovers happened to tie together all these projects. And, well, I'm not so sure. First, there's plenty of setup throughout Phase 4. New chapters, new mysteries being teed up. The seeds have been sown for the Thunderbolts, primarily in Black Widow and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There's been a similar groundwork laying for the Young Avengers across the Disney Plus shows, and you could probably make that same point, albeit in weaker terms, about the West Coast Avengers. Second, though, and more importantly, while there's been a few different build-up strands beginning to coalesce, there is very clearly one central thread that Phase 4 has been weaving across multiple projects. The Kang/multiverse stuff, the stuff that looks to culminate in Phase 6's two-part Avengers event. This focus was pretty clear, even back towards the start of the phase. From teasing the idea of characters crossing from one universe to another, to delving into the multiversal ramifications of time travel in Loki, then ramping up to introduce the puppet master of the multiverse, He Who Remains, and teasing fairly directly the imminent arrival of his more bloodthirsty variant.
See you soon.
At the same time, What If's first season comes out and really hammers home the vastness and danger of these infinite parallel worlds, and shortly thereafter Phase 4 starts to turn all this setup, all these theoretical concerns, into concrete reality, with the dimension-bending spectacle of No Way Home, a move Multiverse of Madness picked up and ran with a few months later. There's not necessarily a direct causal link between all of these things, but there doesn't really need to be. An idea, a new conceit has been floated, introduced and developed across a number of projects. To a greater or lesser extent, this central thread has been furthered in WandaVision, Loki, What If, No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. While there is a lot going on in Phase 4, across a great many locales and with a great many characters, this definitely feels like the centerpiece of Phase 4's spread. And I get it, Phase 4 is big. There's been a lot of stuff that hasn't tied into this multiversal focus, but there's also been quite a bit that has, even relative to the franchise's earlier years. I wonder if there's some recency bias here. While Phase 3 was a tad more connected, concerned as it was with getting all of the pieces in place for the big two-part finale, the MCU really wasn't laser-focused at all before this point. You might make the point that Phase 1 led into the Avengers fairly directly, but I'd disagree. While, sure, the majority of the team were introduced and fleshed out beforehand, there's a number of moments in Phase 1 where we see the seams between the projects, inconsistencies, mini retcons and recasts, which reveal the fact that Phase 1 was far from some perfectly planned beginning.
With the Bifrost gone, how much dark energy did the Allfather have to muster to conjure you here?
Recruitment assessment for Avenger Initiative. Iron Man, yes. Tony Stark, not recommended? That doesn't make any sense.
At this juncture, we'd only like to use you as a consultant.
The Avengers Initiative was scrapped. I thought, and I didn't even qualify.
There's little touches here and there that make it feel like a connected world, sure, but in terms of setup, in terms of actually building to the events of Avengers 1, there's really not much in the solo films. It's really the Avengers film itself which did the heavy lifting here. And while it is true that Phase 4 is the first phase that hasn't culminated in an Avengers movie, a big crossover event, the fact that there's not been payoff yet doesn't mean that there hasn't been setup, planned, directed, focused setup. Sure, for the past 3 phases, the big event at the end has been a sort of capstone for the phase, but look at Age of Ultron. It's not exactly paying off Phase 2, is it? Very little of that film's plot, setting, cast, etc. had been teased or introduced in that phase's slate, barring a pretty tacked-on post-credits scene. It's mostly just a sequel to Avengers 1. There's really not much tying Age of Ultron into Phase 2. While we've always had a big spectacle rounding out a phase, it's not as though Phase 4 is the first to not tie all its strands together with some big finish. So partially because there isn't a big team-up event to finish things up, it's hard to say precisely how much narrative-propelling setup there's been in Phase 4, and how it's going to pay off. But it isn't hard to see that there has been quite a bit already. We're just gonna have to wait a little longer for it to all come together. But while the introduction of the multiverse is clearly part of a narrative push towards Kang, towards Avengers 5 and 6, that's not the only reason it represents a crucial part of Phase 4's direction. No, it's also the first clue that points to this idea of expansion I brought up at the video's start, because it's a massive step forward in world building. All you have to do is look at a film like No Way Home or Multiverse of Madness to see the effects of this. Thanks to Phase 4's introduction of the multiverse, its emphasis on this concept, characters new and old can now enter the fray from alternate timelines and dimensions. Think the Spider-Man, think America Chavez, think the Illuminati. And across Phase 4, from the first time this idea was teased with the Quicksilver fake-out in WandaVision to now, this idea, this new dimension of the MCU's world building has pretty much been normalized, to the point that, yeah, someone like Deadpool could make the journey over from those Fox films, and the audience probably wouldn't bat an eye. It's not about Deadpool, though. It's not even just about pre-existing characters returning. It's about the fact that introducing and developing the multiverse throughout Phase 4 has opened up an unthinkably vast set of possibilities for the MCU storytelling going forward. Any setting, any character, even if they don't fit in with the pre-established MCU canon or world building, can now find their way into a story, if the writers want them, all without breaking suspension of disbelief or compromising the verisimilitude of this world, in a way that would have been nearly inconceivable at the start of, say, Phase 3. And that can now happen forever, for as long as this franchise lasts. Reaching this point, That's one part of this focus, this expansion that I'm talking about, but it's far from the only part. Sticking with the idea of world building for a moment, the idea of expanding which characters, which places, which stories are up for grabs, there's a number of other adjustments Phase 4 has been making to this end. There's the gradual canonizing, or re-canonizing, of elements from the Netflix shows across No Way Home, Hawkeye, and She-Hulk. And speaking of She-Hulk, before that series dropped, I made a video suggesting that the show's rapid and wide-reaching introduction of new superpowered characters heralded what I called a quantum leap forward in world building. A shift to a new approach where comic booky, colourful, weird characters could begin to appear in stories without having to be explained, to be given semi-plausible backstories. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that prediction aged like a damn Cabernet. Plus, this leap forward in world building is sort of matched by the way multiversal and dubiously canonical characters can now enter stories with no heavy introduction needed, and perhaps even by the way less realistic, more comic booky locations and settings have been gradually introduced throughout, like Ta Lo, the Realm of Eternity, or Omnipotent City. That isn't an accident. That's a shift Phase 4 has consciously been making, toward expansion, toward future possibility, toward the new. And if you're still not sold, let's look beyond world building. For instance, look at the increased emphasis on cultures and perspectives outside the established remit of Infinity Saga-era MCU. Sure, toward the end of that time we got Black Panther and Captain Marvel, films looking at this largely white, largely male world from an African-American perspective and a female one. But Phase 4's really dialed this type of thing up. If the African-American viewpoint is a relatively scarce one in big-budget Hollywood franchises, the Muslim-American, Chinese-American, and Central American perspectives are almost non-existent. And would you ever have expected an Egyptian superheroine to pop up in the MCU of previous years? Plus, depending on how you count it, Phase 4's had 3 to 5 projects with a primarily female POV, compared to the 1 of all previous phases. Eternals, too, probably deserves a mention here. In terms of casting and setting, it's the most global project to date in this franchise. And look, with regard to representation, some of this stuff is shallow, maybe people think this thing or that bit missed the mark, and I'm sure that is the case with a lot of this, but I also know that this relatively more global, more inclusive focus has made a lot of people really happy. Also, the point here isn't to look at the specifics of what we've seen in Phase 4, flawed or otherwise. Stuff like Phastos' family, Mark at the Shiver, or Kamala's home life. Some of Phase 4's comparatively intersectional bent may be great, some of it may be shallow and craven. The point I'm trying to make is that it's increasing. Phase 4 has clearly shown an effort across TV and film to include more of these perspectives, more of the experiences, more of the cultures, more of the life ways that were pushed to the margins throughout this franchise's first 10 or so years. And now, standing on the threshold of Phase 5, the MCU has become a series where focusing on other, less highlighted lived experiences is more possible than ever before. This is another angle of what I mean by Phase 4's focus on expansion. It's taking us toward a wider world, a deeper world, one which reflects the diversity of the human experience just a little better. But this bearing toward newness isn't limited to introducing new realities, new characters, new ways of bringing in characters, or even including new cultures. On a meta level, on a generic level, on a formal level, Phase 4 has really pushed the MCU forward. First of all, shows. I know we're at the point now of taking this side of the franchise for granted, and yes, obviously the MCU didn't invent the television format, but I do think that launching this new format of storytelling in a way that kind of folds in seamlessly to this established blockbuster film franchise is a pretty considerable shakeup that deserves at the very least our recognition. I know all of these small screen projects have their flaws, have their critics, but on a purely formal level, this is a new side of the MCU that Phase 4 has introduced and normalized. And going by the way Marvel Studios seems to be moving away from the standard 6-episode template, or the way the She-Hulk team reformatted the show's order to avoid the already stale penultimate episode backstory dump, I think it's fair to say that Phase 4's been a teething process of sorts for the MCU's Disney Plus branch. A process that's taken us from from a purely cinematic MCU to one which now includes a whole second branch, encompassing hyper-serialized dramas, more standalone adventures, honestly kind of experimental projects, animation, and one-off events. That's an explosion of possibilities for what genres, what forms MCU stories can adopt going forward, an explosion that seems to have passed a lot of people by. I mean, take Werewolf by Night. A lot of people's reactions to Werewolf by Night were along the lines of, wow, this is good, this is different, this is what Phase 4 should have been, without seeming to realize that that was Phase 4. Werewolf by Night was a product of Phase 4, of this wider, relatively experimental vision of the MCU. It would never have been made in previous years. Partially because the release infrastructure required for this so-called Marvel special presentation didn't exist during the Infinity Saga, and partially because, owing to this, the way the MCU's release strategy was dependent on tentpole cinematic events, a black and white classic horror pastiche like this wouldn't have been a safe enough bet to release widely. The fact that we're now in a place to get more different, more unique stuff like Werewolf by Night isn't solely down to the Disney Plus platform though. Even in the mainline cinematic releases, we're seeing a stronger emphasis on genre and directorial style. The Doctor Strange sequel saw Sam Raimi really flexing his horror roots. Eternal's restless contemplation was unmistakably Chloe Zhao, and for better or for worse, Love and Thunder went way harder on the improv comedy vibe and lighter on the drama than even Ragnarok did. So I do think Werewolf by Night is fairly representative of Phase 4, or at least the direction of Phase 4. It's embracing a new form and a new genre in a way we've seen a lot as of late, in a way we couldn't pre-Endgame. Generally, I think it's inarguable that we've seen a sharper sense of directorial style and a bigger embrace of genre in Phase 4 than we ever had before. Whether that's the horror pastiche we noted above, the off-kilter sci-fi of Loki, or the postmodern nightmare sitcoms of WandaVision. Add to this the wide variety of formal and storytelling opportunities offered by the burgeoning MCU animation branch, these new special presentations, plus whatever the hell I Am Groot was, and it's clear to see that Phase 4 has really expanded just what the MCU is on a fundamental level. Not accidentally, not incidentally, but consistently and coherently. To sum up then, Phase 4 is focused. It's just not narratively focused to the same degree Phase 3 was. A pretty impossible ask really, since that was the conclusion of a saga and this is the beginning of one. But no, while it is focused, that focus isn't solely expressed in its plotting. On the contrary, Phase 4 is focused on redefining what the MCU is. And I mean that in so many ways, all at once. There's a new central narrative thread being slowly teased out. There's a new wealth of worlds, of characters, of stories made possible by the shift from one setting, one diegesis to a whole multiverse. Phase 4's projects have redefined what constitutes canon in the MCU, redefined the sense of realism underpinning this world, redefined which cultures, whose perspectives are drawn from, redefined the very nature of the content which constitutes this cinematic universe. Phase 4's purpose wasn't to tell a story. It was to explode outwards in every direction, to broaden utterly the horizons for future MCU storytelling, to experiment with genre, tone, form, and medium. As a result, while this phase may not have had the hype or big crossover events of previous years, the way we understand the MCU now, what it can do, where it can go at the tail end of 2022, is a far cry indeed from the relatively limited vision of the franchise's future which we had following Endgame. It's easy to ignore or downplay all of these new moves individually, but taken cumulatively, the MCU after Phase 4 is unquestionably a richer and wider place, one that in 2 short years has opened up countless new avenues for its future. Phase 4 had a focus. This is that focus. Phase 4 marks a consistent, concerted effort to expand this franchise, to push forward with what's possible, in terms of settings, characters, world building, visuals, form, genre, to a degree hitherto undreamt of.
Did you seriously just say hitherto undreamt of?
And that's why you're wrong about Phase 4. As I'm making this, Wakanda Forever hasn't yet released, but it looks set to continue this push toward newness, to cap off this great period of transition in a spectacular fashion. And I for one am looking forward to seeing it, and to seeing where Phase 4 goes next. So I'll wrap up here I think, because this video's already pretty darn long. If you're new here though, I've got plenty of other videos on Marvel, the MCU, and a whole bunch of other stuff besides, so check that out. Thanks for watching, and hey, please do go ahead and share this around to any mates you've got who are being curmudgeonly about Phase 4 and moaning about the lack of a big team up or something. And why not drop a like while you're down there sharing? I don't know, you don't have to listen to me, I'm not your dad. But as always, the real superheroes here are my Patreon supporters, so massive shout out to all the names on screen now, especially Jonathan Francis Bond and Strange Folk.